It was 2016 and I was in a yacht in the Caribbean and I was enjoying like a 5 course meal. I had never had an experience like that before. I was like 24, 25, and I realized that I wasn't poor anymore, but I was still acting poor and feeling poor. And it was like a thing that it's not really how much money you have, it's more of like you still feel that you're poor. Like you feel it, you think like that. That's everything around you. That's how you're acting. And that doesn't change with money. That changed in your mind first. And the reason that I'm telling you this is because I grew up in a third world country. I grew up in Havana, Cuba, and I came to America when I was 21. And the funny thing is that even though I have been in America for a few years, I was still proud that I would go and buy my clothes at Goodwill. And I was getting like pants for $7, and that was like an accomplishment. And I was trying to get like the cheapest sneakers that I could buy. And my backpack, I bought it at Ross for like $10. And I was so proud of myself for being able to save money and live very like in a frugal way, because I came from Cuba. And for us, the fact that you could get things for cheap, it was more interesting than having a different mindset. The reason that I'm telling you this is because on that trip that I was telling you about, I went to film a commercial for a company called Sea Dream. It was a luxury yacht experience. The boat only had 84 passengers, and the staff knew everyone's name, and they even learned throughout the course of the trip, what drinks did you like, what food did you like. And it was an experience that I had never had before. And the funny thing was, the beginning of the trip, I started buying clothes so I could go on the boat, right? And just that experience is what got me started into wearing suits and like learning about fashion and learning about the different taste and how you can appear more classy and more wealthy just by having a different mind and a different mindset and picking different things. Because you could go and spend $800 buying a Gucci t-shirt, or you could spend $300 buying a well-fitted shirt that is going to make you look more expensive, even though it's cheaper. So this whole mindset shift is not about how much money you have or how you spend your money. It's not about that. It was more about deciding to do the things that are of a higher level and not just the things that poor people do. When I was in that boat, I had a conversation with the operations director of the whole company. And I remember that the boat had stopped at St. Bart's, which is one of the most fancy islands in the Caribbean. We see a massive cruise come next to the yacht, right? And that cruise probably had 5,000 people. And I asked this gentleman, he was an older Norwegian guy and he was super successful. And I asked him, why don't you guys build like a big ship? And why don't you guys have a company that does that, right? Because in my mind at that time, I was learning about business, learning about scale. And I was thinking about, if you have this boat, it's only 80 people, you have that boat, it's 5,000. And he told me, Axel, in life, you can make a choice to go for the masses, or you can make a choice to go for the elite. And I remember that stuck with me. He said, we decide to just do the best of the best. We don't want to do something that anyone can do. We're not interested. And those people with the big cruise, that company is very successful. And he told me, they are successful doing what they want to do, but we just don't want to do that. We rather do the best of the best and make sure that there is no like hesitation in terms of quality and service and the experience that we're going to create, because we rather create something of value for a small amount of people that really appreciate it that create something like average for a lot of people to enjoy. And ever since I started a transformation in my life, and this has taken almost like a decade for me to little by little shift that mindset from being a poor kid from a third world country into being someone who is living a wealthy lifestyle. Even though I'm not making the amount of money that I want to make, I'm making way more money than I was making back then. So last year I made the most amount of money that I've ever made in my life. And I'm able now to experience things that when you get to a certain point in the income that you make, the experiences that you have compared to someone who has 10 times more money than you are still very similar. And it's not so much about how much money are you going to spend in a dinner, is where are you deciding to go and have the dinner in the first place? And what are you doing when you're there? How are you dressing yourself when you go to that place? How are you treating the staff when you're there? Are you making connections with people in that place? All of that comes from your mind, not from your wallet. And this is something that is very difficult to explain, especially to someone that comes from another country. I experience this with my dad every now and then when I'm trying to explain to him the things that you can and cannot do with money, and how are you focusing on what to do based on the actual goals and the things that you want in your life, not just how much money are you going to make out of that. So if you, like myself, you're young and you're trying to change the way that you think about money, I think what I would say to you is start with realizing that there is abundance. And it is very difficult when you don't have the abundance to see that there's abundance of money in the world, especially if you live in America. And why is this important? If you keep thinking that everyone is broke like you're never going to try to create a product or create a project or a business or anything that can appeal to someone that is actually rich or has 10 times more money than you. If you don't realize that that is possible, you are still going to try to sell your services, your time, everything that you do and everything that you're connected to. You're going to try to do it for someone at your income level. And it just, you're never going to be able to scale or make real money if you're only thinking of how can I do something that someone like me is going to buy. And I see examples of this when, for example, if I'm making a proposal for a project and we're going to shoot something for a brand, if I'm only considering how much money I would pay for that video, I'm dead in the water, because to me, that video is not that valuable. But for that company, if it changes their revenue by 10%, that could mean $5 million. And the thing that I'm doing is actually helping them achieve that. So the person making the decision on that purchase, he doesn't have the same amount of money that I have to invest in something that will multiply his wealth. So they're making the decision in a very different way. And funny thing is, I have been working with luxury brands, and the psychology of why a rich person buys something is way beyond what the thing is made of, how it's priced, or why they're buying it in the first place. You would come into a hotel and you would say, okay, I'm only going to spend like 150 a night to stay here, and all I'm looking for is a bed and a place to like stay. But someone who has money, they're not looking at that. They're thinking about the location and how they can signal to other people that they have made it. Because if you have the money, you're going to be interested in other things, not just like the number of how much it costs, but how can you send a signal to other people? And the funny thing is that those signals can be sent with less money. And if you learn how to do that, you're going to start realizing that you can become a person that is wealthy before that money hits your account, if you can actually create experiences, products, and services that live up to that standard, and then you can sell that to the person that is looking for that level of excellence. And that is a direct correlation between how you act, how you dress, how you carry yourself. When you go out into the world to do anything, instead of trying to do like the $10 cheap version of everything, just take a break and see how could I do less but of a higher quality. When you change the way that you think about this, it's not only going to affect how much money you make, but it's going to basically transform everything that you do in your life. Because being poor truly is a mindset. It doesn't matter how much money you have, if you're still thinking of yourself in that way, you're not going to push yourself to go all out on your fitness. You're not going to feel comfortable getting nice clothes that are fitted and that make you look good. You're not going to take care of your hair, your skin, your health in the same way. And I really hope that you can make that switch as soon as possible, because it's all going to affect every single area of your life from the moment you wake up to the moment that you go to bed, in how you're living, regardless of how much money you're making. Being poor is a mindset that we have to completely take out of our lives. We have to do it because there's no reason to live like that. It doesn't matter if you're making a little bit of money or a lot of money. It all starts with how you think about yourself. I think that is one of the fundamental shifts that I have experienced in my life that has allowed me to make literally 10 times more money than what I was making before, just by making that shift. And I hope you can do something similar and you can start making a lot more money, because trust me, it definitely will change your life.